Everybody, this is DM Mike, and this is the next chapter tips video for Rise of Tiamat. We are now in chapter 3. Well, actually, we're near the end of the book, but this is going to cover chapter 3. To be honest, I didn't really change all that much when it came to chapter 3 because dungeon crawls tend to run themselves 95% of the time. Once you set them up and put all the monsters in there, well, it's... what's that song? Anything goes. You just never know what's going to happen. But there are a few minor changes I made that may inspire you to change a little bit in your story, or I don't know, hopefully maybe inspire you to add some new things that I haven't even thought of. But anyway, let's go ahead and get into this. These are my, how many tips do I have? I only have like really 4 tips, maybe 5. A couple things that are broken down here. First tip is the chapter itself, splitting it up. Okay, I think this is just something that's kind of optional. In chapter 3 you can go to the Tomb of Diderius, or you go into the Misty Forest, I believe. I just kind of took the Misty Forest, threw it away. I just wanted to go in one direction, twofold for that. One was that I could use it later in the campaign if I wanted to. Matter of fact, right now I probably could sneak it in. But 2, I thought really it was kind of just a personal decision to say, you know what, if I ever run this again, I'll have some new content that I could add to it a little bit later. So I think it's one of those things. You don't have to run every little thing that happens that this book describes for you to do. You can cut things out. And that's just one of the things that I decided to cut out, to either use for later or to use the next time I run the campaign. Number 2 was Griffon Flight. I wanted to speed up some of the travel in this game. There's a lot of times during these chapters where characters are traveling all over the place, and which means it's going to lead to a lot of random encounters, and before you know it, you're doing a lot of this stuff over and over and over again. Well, there's some areas of the campaign I didn't want to do that, and this is one of those. So from Waterdeep, after I had the council, I had them fly by Griffon Mount to the Tomb of Diderius, which I believe is in the Serpent Hills. Now, to do this, it also allowed me to create a cutscene for this, a narrative cutscene, which you can use if you want to. I think it's generic enough that you could use in your campaign, and it just narrates them flying from Waterdeep to Biersker, whatever the heck it is, Biersker Bridge, and just the sights and the sounds they see, including many dragons off the distance. It was a lot of fun, and you're going to want to break this up because if you try to bring to life every single mile these players are doing traveling through this campaign, you're just going to have a heck of a lot of encounters. And so it's a nice way to pull away from that and just give a nice narrative cutscene to kind of enhance the story. Okay, the dungeon itself. Here are the minor changes I made to the dungeons. Not a lot here, just a few tweaks and changes here, but maybe they'll benefit you. First of all was outside of the dungeon, and it was the statues themselves. They're just statues. I decided to change those to walking, talking automatons. I don't know, it was just fun, it was engaging. They were allowed to move around the field and whatnot, and it just created kind of a different and unique encounter. That's kind of, completely optional, but I thought it was a lot of fun. Now, inside the dungeon, there were a few changes. I had a lot more audio effects for 2 characters in particular. I think you actually can find these on my SoundCloud or maybe on my Audio Mac. I'm not too sure. One of them is I gave a voice to the ghost or the statue, the clay golem, actually, in Area 8, which I believe is a throne room. So I gave him a voice. You could play that at your table. 2, I gave Diderius an actual voice. I think I have a Rise of Tiamat prep video that also covers this, just showing me creating this voice effect. But it has, there's actually some box text in here that has, Diderius, I guess, being very vocal, and I thought, hey, that's a cool little spot to bring that to life. So I brought it to life, and you can actually hear the secret door opening and whatnot, so you're welcome to use that. So I added some vocal effects to the dungeon where it was appropriate. 2, I got rid of some of the enemies here, one of them being the bearded devils. I like the idea of devils being in the campaign, but I thought they were poorly introduced here. I didn't want them to come across devils, and the first time they do it's in an old cafeteria. I just found that really just not engaging whatsoever. So I kind of removed those completely from that encounter. Next up to the hatchery, I kind of removed all the enemies in there and instead put in the Yuan-Ti Brood Guard, which I think you can find in Volo's guide. I'm not too sure now. I'm a little fuzzy on the details, but I felt like they're actually in the description of those creatures. They talk about how they're there to actually protect the eggs, the hatcheries of the Yuan-Ti. So I thought, hey, that makes more sense. So I put a bunch of those in there, and I kind of ran it like an Aliens, the movie James Cameron's Aliens encounter, where they walk in, there's mist, there's fog, there's all kinds of stuff going on, and all of a sudden, here come these brood guards out of the shadow and ambush the heroes. It actually was a lot of fun. Also, I removed the trolls from the wells. Like they're supposed to be down in these caverns and whatnot on the outside, and also even on the inside of the tomb when they come across the next well. I don't know, I felt it was just an unnecessary encounter, and there's already, trust me, enough things to deal with in dungeon. You don't need another creature sitting down at the bottom of a well for yet another encounter for them to deal with, right? There's just already enough there. And finally, my biggest major change to the entire dungeon was the final room where they actually find Varam the White. I changed it up here. Here's a quick shot. Here's all the different changes I made. I made the room unique in Tabletop Simulator, expanded upon it. I took out all those enemies, and well, I kept the Yuan-Ti in there basically, but I added a Nightmare Speaker from Volo's Guide. Also from Volo's Guide, I added, I don't know if I can say these guys' names right, Hinkali, these big scorpion-like creatures. And on top of that, I added my own custom token, which was a huge giant mummy snake. And let me tell you, it sounds like a lot, but man, that was the most engaging battle we had. And one of the most fun rooms to be in, almost the entirety of the dungeon. That's one showdown I don't think I'll ever forget. It was just so much energy and entertainment going on. I don't know, it was just the way the dice were rolling and how people were feeling, but it worked out really well. But anyway, guys, that's all the things I changed in Tiamat Idearist. But let's go ahead and do a quick recap so you have it all together here. Let me break it down here because I need to look at my sheet. As normal. I'll probably screw up the order here, but here we go. First of all, option to split up the chapters, okay? Get rid of one of them or save it for later in the campaign. You don't necessarily have to do all these in order. So they may be at one point close to the Misty Forest, and it might be time to pull out that chapter and use it later on, right? So just an option. Number 2, Griffon Flight. Again, watch how much you travel. Watch all these random encounters, to speed things up. I thought it was a great idea just to have them leave from Waterdeep to the Serpent Hills. It was a long journey through Griffon Mount. It kind of smooths things over a little bit, and also it gives you a chance to do some narrative cutscenes. All right, the next one was the statues outside the tomb. I don't know, it's just a little fun thing, right? I had a bunch of audio effects, and I had 6 vocal responses recorded where I engaged my players. It was a whole to-do, but it was just neat to have, instead of just these statues that were immobile, to have kind of these cool little automatons walking around created by Idearist. The next is the dungeon itself. Just going to break this down really quick here. I added, what did I do here? I added vocal responses to the characters. You can use those to some of the characters inside the dungeon. You can use those off my SoundCloud if you want to. I removed the bearded devils. I thought it was a poor introduction to a really cool enemy. I added the Yuan-Ti brood guard to the hatchery. I removed the trolls in the well and just under the well, because there's 2 wells. There's wells on the outside, wells on the inside. Just got rid of all the trolls altogether. Trust me, there's enough to encounter already. And I enhanced the final room, made that room its own separate map. I'll tell you, there's not going to be enough room on that map for you when you bring all those characters in. I just made it a very unique room. I replaced all the enemies with a Nightmare Speaker, a 2 Hinkali, I hate Forgotten Realms. Whatever it is, and then added my own custom token, large mummy snake. That's it, guys. That's a quick rundown. Now, some of this stuff you can find on the workshop. I actually did the entirety of Tomb of Idearist in 3D. I'll put pictures up here on the workshop. If you're running Tabletop Simulator, you can find it. Just type in Tomb of Idearist. And I created the whole thing, including I also have a custom map of that throne room that's also up there. And I also uploaded the token, the mummy snake token that I used. So you can have access to all that stuff. And then also you can have access on my SoundCloud or Audio Mac for any of the vocals you'd like to use for, really the entirety of the dungeon. This was a lot of fun. Tiamat Idearist it ran itself, as most dungeon crawls do, I think. They kind of run themselves. And here's one thing I would caution, though. If you have a thief in the group, be ready to encounter just about everything in the dungeon, especially when it comes to the clay golem. I thought for sure they were going to go past it, but no, the thief started taking stuff from the altar, and of course that activated the clay golem. There were a lot of times I thought the thief was going to steal from the mummies, and if you disturb the mummies or any of the tombs, boy, that just creates even more encounters in that room. And I tell you, the Idearist's tomb, Idearist himself, is pretty powerful. That could be almost a TPK if people aren't careful. So you want to make sure that you're selling the idea that, hey, this place is sacred. You don't really want to touch all these things. All right, just telling you up front, there's a lot of areas in the Tomb of Ideas where things can go south really, really fast. But for the most part, it was a lot of fun. It was a really, really great dungeon run, and I'm glad it was part of the adventure. All right, guys, that's all I got for you. I'll see you in the next one.